Hello, this is Lee Wilkins with LKCS, and we're now ready to start our presentation on web trends. And what we're going to be talking about today is mainly trends and techniques used in website development, mobile development, and marketing in trends for 2012. A few guidelines before we get started. We're going to be sending you out an email after the presentation is over with the presentation, so you can have the slides. It's also going to be available, as you'll see on this next slide, at YouTube at our channel. We'll have those available for you, as well as all the other presentations that we've done. Next, the phone lines will be muted. At the end of the presentation, we'll open the phone lines for conversation. If you have any questions, you can also, in the meantime, type them into the question box on the sidebar of the viewer, and we'll answer those as they come through. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And my contact information is provided here. You'll also see it at the end of the presentation, and you can feel free to contact me with any questions or if you'd like to see any further information on any of the products or services we're going to talk about today. And we're going to just briefly touch on several topics that are current trends, new technologies, things you may have heard of but aren't real clear on. And we can certainly provide more detail on those if you'd like to contact us. So to start, here's an index of what we'll be going over. We're going to start out with talking a little bit about design and branding, some of the trends of how current sites are trending right now as far as design is concerned, layout, and things like that. We're going to touch on content management systems, or CMS, integrated custom web tools, and this is a piece that's going to talk mainly about tools that are built specific for your needs to your site, custom created for your needs. Next, we'll touch on mobile sites, followed up by microsites. We're going to go into social media marketing, talking about Facebook, Google+, and then also YouTube. Following that, we'll go over QR codes, NFC or near-field communication, and then last, we'll talk about responsive web design. So to start, we're going to talk a little bit about design and branding and general trends. So to start, the trend has been more towards clean design in the past. Sites used to have a heavy load of images and things like that with an emphasis on branding and design and heavy elements. And as you see out there browsing the web, the trend has gone more towards clean, simple design, easier for users to get to where they need to be, simple navigation, just not a lot of filler in between what the user wants and your design. So professional level of design and branding, of course, is key. That's for cohesiveness between your web presence and anything else that you have for marketing efforts, such as your print pieces. Organized and consolidated content areas. Of course, it's important to have all of your content in areas that make sense to a user. Anything that's logically grouped together should be in consolidated spaces on your pages, and we'll look at that in a second on some sample sites. Images that are used in the past, it was always kind of a trend to just have images more or less for the sake of having images, and that's gone by the wayside now and is more important in the need of speed and loading time and things to have images that really support your content, help emphasize the value of a product or service with your branding image, and of course not be generic filler. And then lastly, part of this clean design movement is also integrated third-party elements. It's important, especially on some of our credit union customer sites. We see a large number of third-party services that need to be available on the site, but they can also tend to take over a design of a site. So we'd like to consolidate those elements into integrated areas to make them available but not take over the credit union's main focus on the page. This is a sample site of kind of what I was speaking about as far as having a clean design, simple, not a lot of excessive graphics. Obviously, you can see in the middle with the banner ad, a very eye-catching banner to help justify or draw your attention on that topic and draw interest in making you click that. To the left, we have some consolidated areas, like I had mentioned, as far as most commonly used links, areas that help you get through the site, any key action areas down at the bottom here with news, applications, things like that. Also the availability to sign up for e-statements, product and service updates, things like that. Any announcements that have to be provided or quick link areas are usually in consolidated spaces. Also, you'll notice the banner ad rotation. They have this customer has full control over this area, and we'll talk a little bit more about our banner ad management system. But this gives you the ability to manage all of your banner ads with full control for you to organize the way they show up, the order, also scheduling as far as when they appear, when they disappear, and things like that. But as a whole, the point of this was to show the clean design, and this is a kind of a trend right now. More so on the branding, the design and overall presentation is going to help you identify your brand or your identity to make it consistent and noticeable and recognizable. So as you'll see in the next sample, we're going to show the pieces that are used as graphic elements on the site are something that's used throughout all of their marketing pieces, and it helps build the presence that they were going for. That's going to build your consistency, as I mentioned, with all marketing efforts, and it helps to maintain your standards throughout the life of your site to keep your design and your branding professional and at a high level. This is the sample that I was speaking of. Maybe a little bit difficult to see, but on the right and the left, they use this pillar theme. That's something that's very prevalent even throughout their logo, screened in some of their consolidated areas throughout the site. But those are all elements that are very prominent through all their marketing efforts. It's something that they required us to use in the design, and it is consistent throughout the site. They also have the common theme of the blue and gold for their branding and presence. And if you'd seen more of the elements they send out or more of the pieces they send out, all of those pieces are consistent with the colors, the general theme, and very recognizable as this customer. Next, we're going to touch on content management systems. The particular system that LKCS uses is called Sitefinity, but there are a various number of them out there. Some of the ones you may have heard of are like Joomla, WordPress. There's several other ones, and they all range in price from free to very high numbers, so it really depends on the needs that you have, how much support you need, and things like that. But the premise of the content management system is to give you control as an end user without necessarily having to have a large amount of experience with web development and the HTML side of things or the code side of pages. So with the development team that can put that together for you, you then have easy control to do things like making your changes timely, because you can do it in-house. You can have staff applied to different areas of the site through different right management capabilities. You can manage your site without web knowledge. Again, it's kind of like similar to using an editor if you were to use Microsoft Word or something like that. It's a very easy to use tool. Some of the functionality elements that should be included in your CMS while you're deciding on which CMS is best for you are things like the obvious of adding, editing, and deleting pages. Also editing your site navigation, that's a key piece. With Sitefinity, for instance, you have the ability to drag and drop your navigation scheme. So you can move things with just your mouse. You can click and drag an entire navigation section to a new area in your navigation scheme, reorder sublinks within your submenus, things like that. And also, you want the ability to implement plugin elements, things like polls, image galleries, banner management, anything like that that you can think of, photo galleries. Tools like that are usually available as elements that can simply be drug onto a page and then integrated into your document layout. So you can go ahead and edit those at that point without extra development. And also another important element of your CMS is going to be your ability to log site changes. This is important for several reasons, most important probably being your compliance reviews. Should there ever be a question of what a particular rate was on a given date, you have the ability to go back in and see when the last change was. You view a preview of what that page looked like, and you can see what you had for the rates for compliance reviews. Also, obviously, internally, if there's ever any question of why something was changed or who changed it, you have the ability to log in and see that. Okay, next we're going to talk about some of those integrated custom tools. Some of these are components of things like I mentioned in the CMS, and others are custom created tools that have their own control panels to log in and edit. But we're going to touch base on banner ad management, dynamic rates, custom polls, location mapping, or working with Google, like Google Maps, for instance, for location mapping, social marketing integration samples, RSS feed integration, and then announcement management. First, we'll focus on banner ad management. And this is a sample, as I had mentioned on the previous site, on the LaSalle State Bank site. These are all samples of banners that are in rotations, and these are all custom created based on the customer's specific needs. So we have many different variables available depending on the type of banner ads you want, how much functionality you want to control yourself, and then lastly cost, of course. We have everything from basic, where you just have an image that rotates, all the way up to the bottom right one, for instance, is a complete flash animation. So there's a rotation of flash elements for this customer. This is a view of a login or control panel for those elements. You can see on the left, this is a quick preview or thumbnail of all the available banners, and you can keep as many banners as you like in there. So if you ever want to turn one off and then just keep it for future reference, the little green icon here, if that's grayed out, it means it's inactive. You turn it back on, and it's then active. You also have the ability, as you see to the right, within each of the specific banners, to go in, control your link, control your publish date, and your expiration date. So should you have a promotion that starts or ends on a weekend or something like that, you don't have to actually log in and access that to manage that. You can actually just handle it directly through this control panel, and it'll automatically do as it's told. Next, we're going to look at dynamic rates. This is a sample showing you kind of how this works, but the basis of it is that you can have your rates anywhere on your website, and it's all controlled through one control panel. So for instance, this element here for this particular customer is on their home page in a tab format for the main categories of their rates. Below, this is a sample of what's on some of their interior pages. They have dedicated rate areas on some of their interior pages for different categories. And then on the right, you see the actual control panel that manages all these locations at the same time. And this is in addition to their actual rates page. You just simply update your term, your tier, your rates, whatever you'd like, and it refreshes on the fly. All these updates are done in one spot, and they're updated and reflected throughout the rest of the site. Next, this is a sample of a poll management system. It's another one of the common trends to see polls posted on homepage sites. Usually typically very simple questions, just kind of getting feedback from members or customers, trying to get a feel for things to help make decisions down the road, or that's marketing, product and service questions, things like that. From there, typically you have 3 or 4 answers. The user gets to vote, and at that point, that vote is then stored. In our case, we have the custom control panel on the back side. You can see where you can turn these on and off, just as I mentioned with the banner ads. So you have your question that the user has full control over editing, your answers, tabulation on the results, and then you have the opportunity, obviously, to save those changes after you've made them, and that pushes live to the live poll. There's also the ability, as with the other tools I've mentioned, to create as many polls as you'd like, and then you can have those other ones inactive, store them for future use. Next is location mapping. I mentioned Google Maps, or integrating Google Maps in your site. For this particular customer, we integrated all of their different locations as well as their ATMs. These were not the shared ATM network finders. This was their actual ATMs. So we have all those available, and when you click on one of those locations, we have it prompted to pull up a box, pop-up box with all their information, their hours, their phone, any of the contact information. Then obviously you have the ability within Google Maps to map the directions to that location from your address. It just simplifies it for users. I mentioned social media integration. This is an example of having Twitter feeds pulled to your homepage. This is an element that's pulled to this customer's homepage. Just shows their latest tweet on the homepage of the site. To the right, you notice these are something you see in pretty much everywhere now, but it's all the different social networks sharing links. I'd also mention RSS feed integration. This is another element that is on the left. You'll see this is on the customer's homepage of their site, and on the right, this is the piece that's pulled from a third-party service that they have a subscription to. The content on the right is updated on I believe, a weekly basis, and that is automatically then pulled to their homepage. So it gives the presence that the content's being updated more frequently. It's all pertinent information to members, and invaluable information most times. So it's information that they don't have to touch, and it's part of the service, so they had us pull that in, and it's a great service and a great resource for them. Next is the announcement management system. Again, this is very similar to most of the other tools we've talked about, but you have the ability to kind of consolidate announcements. We have several different versions of this, but the one on the left, they have a spotlight area, and the actual announcements rotate through here. They just scroll through every few seconds, and obviously we can adjust the time on that, or you can view more. But those announcements are all consolidated into one space as opposed to having to list all those different things in one spot on your home page. So you get rid of some of the, you don't take up as much screen real estate that way. On the back end, it's the same control components here where you can activate or deactivate any of the announcements. Obviously delete them, add announcements, schedule those announcements as with the banners. Next, we're going to move on to mobile websites and talk a little. We're going to talk about several different aspects of these, but first we'll just go over a quick overview of what your goals really should be for your mobile site and why it's important to have that. First of all, your mobile site's going to be custom designed for mobile delivery. Currently, not all websites are exactly mobile friendly. When you pull them up on your mobile device and it's loading a 1,000 pixel wide web page on your mobile device, you need to scroll in and use your scrolling components on your phone to get to a point where you can even read the content typically. Some websites are more friendly than others, but ideally a mobile site is the way to go. It's going to be separate from your main site. Typically it would be within the same website so that we can share component content. So for instance, if you have About Us information on both your website and your mobile site, we like to have the ability to where you just update that once and it's shared on those two locations. Again, it's going to be simplified and optimized for your mobile device. So we're going to minimize down to fewer images, probably your basic branding components, possibly a banner ad, and then key information, so fewer pages. We have customers who have a 75 or 100 page website, but their mobile site is down to 5 or 7 pages. And then usually you have login access to your online banking or your mobile banking. As I mentioned, integration of marketing ads. This is something that initially most mobile sites did not have, but it's something we're seeing an increase in the trend in this, to have ads shown at the top or at the bottom of your homepage, typically on your mobile site, because it's another opportunity to get interaction on promotions, products, announcements, things like that. Mobile and online banking integration, we'll see a sample of that in a second. But obviously, if you have mobile banking, that gives you the opportunity to link directly to that, or even your online banking integration for now until you adopt mobile banking. Locations for QR code landing pages. This is a great way for QR codes, since you are using a mobile device as it is, to scan QR codes. Obviously, a page that's optimized for that mobile device that you're scanning from is going to be more effective than going to a full website page, because again, you're going to have to do the things we discussed earlier with scrolling and adjusting your page on the screen size that you have to see that content. As part of that process as well, on your main website, we always implement a piece of code that helps redirect users coming from a mobile device so that they're not stuck looking at the main site. It'll tell them that it'll tell the user that they're on a mobile device and redirect them automatically to the mobile site. So it automatically pushes them over and gives them the best version of the website to look at. And then once you get there, we typically include a link back to the main site should there be more information not available on the mobile site that they need from the main site. And lastly, I want to touch a topic that comes up quite frequently, is the difference between a mobile site and mobile banking. A mobile website is simply a version of a website like you have as your main website. Your mobile banking is an actual mobile optimized online banking site. So they are two separate things. The mobile site gives you the opportunity to provide information about the credit union or bank or your business, and then also link over to the other services such as mobile banking or online banking, as I mentioned. And here's a sample. This is the simplified version of the site that we saw earlier. This is their mobile website. As I mentioned, it has the option to view the full site. We've integrated online banking. This particular customer did not have mobile banking at the time, but it gives you the online banking link. And as you can see on the right, here's a screen capture of what that looks like for their online banking. There's also some additional functionality that we can optimize into a mobile site that we couldn't do with your regular site. As you see here, this is the main page, and then to the right, I've chosen to find a branch. So I chose the main office from the previous page that shows up when you click on Find a Branch. It gives you all the contact information, but then we have the ability to integrate a couple of options that are something we just do for your mobile site. If you click on Call, it's going to automatically call the contact number provided for that location. It gives you the ability to go ahead and dial that. And if you click on Map, it's going to pull up the Google Map integration to show you where that location's at on the map. And then from there, you can use the Google Map functionality to map your directions and things like that. Next, we're going to touch on microsites. A microsite's a defined sub-site to your main website. It's going to be something that's focused on a particular demographic, particular topic, promotion, or possibly even just a game or something like that to attract attention or to be an announcement of your brand or something like that. We'll show a couple samples in a second. But it's going to be focused on one specific thing as opposed to your website, which covers your entire focus. It's going to help you improve your brand recognition and then also SEO. Anything you can have outside of your main domain that ties into your main site is going to help brand or help your SEO. And we'll talk more about that with some other tools that help that as well. But your search engine optimization is going to be improved by having other resources out there that link back to your main site. These are just a couple of samples. This one is focused specifically on checking accounts. This is the topic for this site. This one has a movie in it. Some of the sites are, as I mentioned, games. We have one that I'll show you in a second when we get to our social media section that was focused on a certain age demographic. It really just means that you're going to be focused on a particular topic on that site. And it's usually something you're putting extra effort into as well with other forms of marketing, whether it's direct mail or other electronic services. Okay, and moving into social media marketing. One of the most important things to remember here is, and if you don't already know by now, is that it's a relationship building tool and not a selling tool. We do see customers that, of course, want to gain sales and want to know how to make more money from the social media sites, and that's really not the main goal of it. It's building relationships with your members, your customers, and helping build that relationship so then when it does come time for the decision-making process, that they're going to look to you for those products or services. You want to key in on information important to your audience, not your business goals. So again, it's kind of repetitive, but you don't want to focus on your latest product necessarily. And once you need to show your members and customers what you're going to do for them, how you're going to help them. Some of the better examples of social media sites we've seen that get more followers and have higher success rates are those that actually have things not necessarily even directly related to their business, but maybe announcements of the area, upcoming events, things they may be at, whether it's parades, shows, whatever the case may be, things like that that interact with the area and help get people involved. Most importantly to the success of any of the social media sites is going to be dedicated resources to manage your social media marketing. You need to have current updates and frequent updates, and the information needs to be pertinent to your followers, otherwise nobody's going to follow you. You want to utilize secondary features of social media, things like games, ads, and reward your followers for following you and taking the time to interact with your site. Next, you want to use the features available to you, such as demographic targeting. This is doing things like with your ads. You can target specific demographics, whether it's marital status, age. There's several different topics, things you can do. So you want to be able to take advantage of that with your ads that you offer on your social media sites. Next, you want to optimize and brand your pages, and we're going to show you some samples of that and how that can be done. But you want to take full advantage of all the capabilities you have, and the first example we're going to look at is going to be in Facebook. You have some ability within there to custom brand different areas or sections of the pages to make those more interesting than just using the default page content that's there. This is LKCS's page here. As you can see, we've branded this with the intention of improving our likes. If you haven't already liked this graphic, and the obvious section at the top is there with the intention of getting you to like our site. This also shows another sample at the top. This integrates some of our key areas. The different app graphics that we use for the different products and services that we offer are shown there. But this gives you a sample of some things you can do to integrate parts of your website, your products and services, to help make this more interesting and evolve it. The next example, I had mentioned this previously, this is another example of a microsite that we had set up for a Bree credit union. This is our Identify site that's focused on 16 to 25-year-olds. And as I mentioned previously as well, we have one important element is always to have consistency amongst all your marketing efforts. So I wanted to just show their Facebook page, how we took the branding from the website, carried it through to their site here. It has the same general feel and dynamic throughout the whole site, both on the social media side and on the website. Next, this is one of the newer ones. The Facebook pages, the Google Plus pages is a relatively new release. Google Plus has been out for a few months, but the pages for businesses is a very new release. It's still in its infancy, but wanted to touch base on it just to bring it to light and discuss some of the features of it. The main difference that you're going to notice between the two, between Facebook and Google Plus, is Facebook's considered more of a true social networking site, where that is the focus, is social communication between people, where Google Plus takes a little bit further as far as trying to give you more content or bring content to you based on things like your user behavior and just development through things that you look at, people you talk to, things like that. It's built to expand as you use it more. Some of the elements of Google Plus that you'll notice, and some of the new terms that you'll be hearing, are things like circles, which basically stands for groups of users that you can establish. And you can have many different circles for different topics. It really depends on the different things you want to set up. You can get as defined as you'd like. And the nice thing within the circles or the groups is that you can control those from there on out with things like your Hangouts. Hangouts is basically a location where you can have your circle or circles hang out and do things like sharing information, viewing, maybe it's videos on YouTube, sharing content, as well as meetings. You can basically connect through a webcam, have face-to-face meetings through there, and have group meetings within the Hangouts with your circle contacts. Another term you're going to see is search and ripples. That's going to help you see kind of what's being said about your company or your business, and then how conversations are spreading, and that's where the ripple part comes in. It's going to show you kind of an outlook of where things are going. Once somebody says it, where's it going from there? The ripples help define how people are talking about you, who's talking about you, and how far it's going. The main reason I wanted to discuss this is Google was the fastest to reach 50 million users out of all the social networking sites. Again, this goes back to just the Google Plus, the initial release of it, not the pages, but in 88 days it reached that 50 million user mark. Now obviously the track's already been set by the other social media networks, so that assisted in that, but it was the quickest to adopt that many users. So it's a very prominent tool, and again, it is young, but it's something that you'll hear more about, and I'm sure will be a major player for marketing in the future. This is a sample of Time Magazine's use of Google+. Shows you some of the branding and custom integration that they've done. Next, we're going to touch on YouTube. The main benefits of YouTube are things like the broad audience delivery. Obviously, anybody out there that goes to YouTube can, in theory, stumble upon your videos, depending on how prominent your category is or your movie is. There's no cost for the account. It's a free account. Obviously, there are incurred costs with the development of the content and things like that, but it is free to obtain an account. It's very beneficial, again, to the SEO. As I mentioned, any other domain name pointing back to your site is going to help boost your SEO, and obviously videos are a big piece of that and very prominent, along with your social marketing tools that we mentioned, the other ones. It can easily be tied into your social marketing as well with links and embedding into your pages, your websites, as well as different parts of your social media tools. Next, videos and engaging media. It's something that gets more interaction or makes people want to watch it more so than, maybe it's just a slideshow or something like that. If you have live video of some topic, it's going to help engage your followers and get them to interact with you. It has the potential for viral growth. Obviously, anybody that sees it can pass it on, depending on the topic and how prominent it is or interesting it is. It's something that can be passed on from one user to the next. And then you have many content options. As I mentioned, live video is going to be, or video is going to be your main attention getter, but you can do things just as we're doing here that get attention, which is recording this presentation. It's going to be available on the web. So any of those media efforts are helpful. You can also do things like I mentioned with the slideshow. There's several different things you can show on YouTube. Some of the difficulties obviously are creating beneficial content that's actually going to help you and be interesting enough for viewers to watch. That's an obvious concern when you're creating anything. You don't want to just put out something that may either be negative or non-beneficial. You want to create video or content that's going to be beneficial to you. Also, production costs, it can range anywhere from very inexpensive up to very expensive depending on how far you take the production costs of the video that you're creating, what kind of technology you're using, things like that. This is a sample again of LKCS's YouTube channel, and this shows you just a preview of some of the different webinars that we've given in the past, and this is where this particular webinar will be. And if you click on one of those webinars, this is what you get as a preview. You have the ability to play this now and go through the webinar just as if you attended. Next, we're going to talk about QR codes or quick response codes. And this is something that's been developing for the last couple of years, and we touched on this in last year's webinar as well on web trends for the year. But we're going to go into it a little bit more today as well. Basically, it's a barcode or a two-dimensional code that can be read by a QR reader or a scanner on your phone. It gives you the ability to pull up content of different types on your phone. But the basis of it is it's black modules. We're going to show you a sample of this in a second, but black modules arranged in a square pattern on a white background that your scanner is going to be able to pull out and identify as a unique URL. The information that you embed or encode in this can be text, a URL, or other data such as a signature file to be added to a user's contact without data entry. You just scan the QR code, and then, as you'll see in the next sample, we can integrate that information. This is a sample like of LKCS's business cards. On the back side of our business card, we have a QR code presented so that you don't have to enter our information if you want to add it to your phone. All you do is run your scanning tool, as shown here. It's going to identify the pattern and present the information to you. At that point, you can then add that information to the contacts in your phone. This is a sample here of several different uses or integrations of QR codes, from general marketing mailings, product placement, such as in this wine bottle. McDonald's has even used it in different countries for things like having the health facts or nutritional facts on the wrappers. We see it on the side of buildings, billboards. This is in the Dallas football stadium. They even had it on the Jumbotron there, so you can see that there, and you can see the result of where it took you on the phone. LKCS has used it. This is an example of Microsoft's solution, but this is one we've used in one of our ads in a magazine for some awards we received for our website design and development. Coupons, there's all sorts of different solutions for using that. Next, we're going to talk about NFC, or near field communication. This is something that's kind of on the heels of QR codes to make it's an even simpler solution once it is perfected. And again, this is something that you don't see a lot of yet, but it is up and coming, especially in the payment method or in payment methods, and we'll show some samples of that. But the basis of it is that your phone communicates through a radio signal with some kind of device or an object in close proximity that can communicate back with it. It's used currently for things like financial transactions, data or information exchange, simplified setup of different electronic settings or communications, things like a Wi-Fi connection. So if you're walking into someplace new, you may to set up your settings. If it's not an automated process, you can go through the NFC to connect, things like that. Simplified communication with minimal user effort is the key to the whole thing. It's really a simple process of setting or of using the near field communication as compared to like the QR codes where you have to actually get the scanner, open the scanner, go through the process of doing the scan. This does all the communication for you once you launch that application to do the NFC. These are a few different samples. I have an example here of an ad where you can actually go to this piece, and what they're doing on like print pieces is there's actually a chip or a communication device on the print pieces that communicates with your mobile device. Things like Google is integrating a new service for funds or for transferring funds, getting into their, you can set up your different accounts on there, and this is an example of a portal or a place where you can communicate with your accounts. Bump technology is a thing where you can have two different devices. They call it bump because you basically have to touch the two devices, but you can do different things like transfer contact information, transfer funds, things like that, all through the bump process. And this sample here is a Starbucks integration that they're using for basically where you charge your card to the account, and then you just have your phone or your mobile device with you, and you can deduct for payment right from your account through giving them your phone to scan that element. And next we're going to talk about responsive web design, and this is a relatively new term as well, but you'll be hearing more about this also. The basis of it is the page content, including images, layout, etc., is going to respond to multiple devices and screen resolutions. And it's all going to happen from one site, as opposed to having to build multiple sites, as we discussed, where you would maybe build a mobile site, or if you're building a site specific to optimize for an iPad or something like that. This one device or this one site is going to accommodate all of your different devices and respond to that device. Right now, with current trends or current technology in place, sites don't do that. You may see sites that expand to fit 100% of the width of a page, but nothing's really rescaling or formatting under your control. It kind of does it on a free-form basis. Images aren't going to change size or anything like that. And I'll show you some samples of how this really works in a minute. Image resolutions and formatting. We can change those based on mobile delivery. So for instance, we can deliver a low-res version of your images and graphics, and also a different format of your graphics and your general layout for your mobile device to make it a faster download. And again, the basic premise is a great premise. It's saying that you can create one solution or one site and get a solution for various devices. The downside is it's going to be relatively expensive at this point yet. It does take a lot of development time to accommodate all the different needs that go into this development process. It's right now approximately twice as long to build a site through this premise as it is through traditional means. So it does take some time, and obviously as that gets perfected and the processes get simplified, that will go down. And browser support is still limited as well. Older browsers and even some of the newer Internet Explorer browsers do have issues with support on this. So at this time, most providers that do offer it also have a secondary site for answering those other people that are viewing from different browsers that don't accept it. This is probably the most common example. The Boston Globe is using it now. It's live. So you can see what I'm showing you is basically I opened the same web browser and I just dragged and dropped the size of the browser window. And these were all scaled at the same size, but you can see all the images scaled depending on how wide I went with the format. The layout's changing slightly. Here we have a 2-column format in the smaller format, a 3-column one, which is a little bit in between the small and the large one. And then on this one, it made everything larger to accommodate that screen size. And then the same site, again, is being used for this delivery on this mobile device. And this shows you this single column with the image and the text. But all that's accommodated through one build. These aren't all different sites. It's all done through one build. So pretty cool technology, but it's going to take some time to perfect and to bring the cost down. So that is it for my presentation.